Calling to order the regular monthly meeting of the Altadena Library District, January 22nd, 2018 at 5:05 p.m. We'll begin with roll call. Ira Brachowski. Here. Gwendolyn McMullen. Here. John McDonald, President. Armando Zambrano. And Trustee Adelila Zelada Garcia has tendered her resignation. And for the record, I'll read the letter to your board president and board members. It is with regret that I am writing to inform you of my decision to resign my position on the Board of Trustees for the Altadena Library District, effective immediately. My personal and professional responsibilities outside of the library have increased significantly since I joined the board, and I no longer feel that I am able to fulfill my duties as trustee to the library. I feel it is best for me to make room for someone with the time and energy to devote to this role. It has been a true honor being a part of the Altadena Library Board. I am so proud of all that we have accomplished. I have no doubt that the board will continue these successes in the future. Sincerely, Adelila Zelada Garcia. Adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I did have a meeting with Cynthia Carmona on behalf of the foundation. There's a possibility that she needs to leave this by 7, so perhaps we can consider moving the report to the support group, items 16A and B, up before the closed session.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Motion second. The agenda is adopted as amended. We will begin with item 16, reports of the support groups. Cynthia, would you like to go to the podium and make your presentation?
Hi. Trying to see you guys over the screen here. Thank you for moving up the agenda item. Cynthia Carmona, current president of the Altadena Library Foundation. Just to give you a quick report, Susan Olmstead Bowen, who's actually been our treasurer for some time, did tender her resignation also last month, and so Mark Mariscal has agreed to step up and fill that role, so we're really grateful to have him helping us in that regard. Otherwise, just the big event that I would just let you guys know about is that we are having a gathering this Thursday for people who are interested in participating in the foundation as part of our foundation board building effort. And so we're really looking forward to that. Library staff are also assisting us with that. That'll be here at the library from 7 to 8:30, 7 to 8:30 on Thursdays. So hopefully we get some great interest in the board there, and we have quite a few people attending. Otherwise, we've been pretty busy looking at some new grant opportunities that have been made available, as well as making sure that we're working well with you guys in terms of some requests over at the branch as well. So we look forward to working with you guys on that too. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Cynthia?
Yeah, quick question. In the event that someone interested in joining the foundation cannot make this Thursday meeting, what's the best way for them to reach out to the foundation?
I think probably the best way to reach out would be, they could either let some key library staff know, so either Kylan or Chloe have been assisting in minor ways, but also myself, Mark Mariscal, also is on the board and can take inquiries, as well as Cynthia Kumanchik, who is here. I'm happy to kind of offer up my email address to you guys that you guys can put out in case folks want to reach out.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to present on the Friends of the Library?
Yeah, Mark Mariscal, President of Friends of the Altadena Library. So next month, I think it's February 24th, Saturday, we're actually having another pop-up book sale. And so John, one of the first things when I became president, one of the first things he said at a meeting was, you guys ought to try to have a little bit more smaller sales. And so this will be the third one. They've been successful. Fourth one, actually. They've been successful, and so we're going to continue to do that. But we did skip January, so we're doing February, and then, of course, the big one, which is in May, the third weekend in May, where we use the parking lot and everything else. The other thing is your item, I'll just say the Friends, on item 12A, your resolution. I think that's a good thing. I thought that was already something in place, but maybe you just have to do a resolution every year where volunteers are also covered under the workers' comp. Most of the people that volunteer with the Friends, they happen to be retired, so it doesn't pertain as much to them. But, many of the other volunteers you have here, and I think that's really a great thing. So I don't know, Uni pushed that or where you guys got that from, but I think that's a good thing, and that's all I have for the Friends.
Thank you, Mark. So at this time, we're recessing into closed session.
Director McDonald, I was wondering if I could do the presentation on the audit before?
Oh, you can.
If there's other presentations, then we may get on the road.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Because I would ask to be priced as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time constraint, okay.
Yeah.
Can someone make a motion to amend the agenda?
A motion to,
So Paul can do
Paul?
Yes, Paul. Thank you.
Steve.
Do I have a second?
So this is item
9B.
9B.
So we'll be moving up item 9B to accommodate our guest presenter. This is a presentation of the Altadena Library District final draft of the annual financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2017, conducted by independent certified auditor, the Pun Group, and Mr. Paul Kingsley.
Thank you. All right, so you all should have copies of the audits in front of you there. We'll move into the first page with the letterhead. And at the bottom of the page there is what we're looking for. Should be before page number 2, should be page number 1 at the beginning. Doesn't have a number on it because it's got the letterhead at the bottom.
November, but we have more copies.
Sorry, just give us a second.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
All right, there we go. So the bottom page is what we're looking for there. The opinion is our opinion. The financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities and the general fund of the district as of June 30th, 2017. The respective changes in financial position for the year then entered in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That is an unmodified opinion. If we move forward to page number 5. Page number 5, we have some financial bullets there. The district's net position increased 41.09%, or $578,571, from the prior year's net position of $1.4 million to $1.9 million as a result of this year's operations. So we had an increase in the bottom line there, adding to the reserves for the future years. The revenues from all sources increased by 15.46%, or about $500,000, from $3.2 million to $3.7 million from the prior year, primarily due to an increase of $149,000 in property taxes and $364,000 in operating grants and contributions received during the year for your operations and capital activity. Total expenses for the district's operations increased by 11.5%, or $326,000, from $2.8 million to $3.1 million from the prior year, primarily due to a $100,000 increase in salaries and benefits expenses and $200,000 increase in materials and supplies expense from what you were doing here during the year. So, if we move forward on that up to the financial statements, let's go to page number 16. So we start out overall in this governmental full accrual accounting here. We start out with the overall governmental activities for the expenditures, overall operations. Basically, operations is more of what you've spent in cash, and then your non-cash application for depreciation expense for the year. So $3.156 million for the year in total expenditures. Program revenues we call these program revenues based on the fact this says something more that you can enact a fee or something that you can touch. When we say that, when we look at a general revenue down below in the next quadrant, that's something more that you're not based on the interest of the market, the property tax allocation. Those things are a little bit out of your hands. But what you do have in your hands is there charges for services, your overall library assessment, and your charges for services, the different activities you do here, and you're requesting for other grants and contributions during the year for a total of $1.3 million. So overall net program expense there, 1802152, is a negative based on, you know, you're being subsidized overall by the property tax and other revenues that you receive, the general revenues there. But you see, if you were working on just the premise of what you could bring in, doesn't fit, so. Then we look at the general overall revenue, so property taxes, your redevelopment increment, your investment earnings, and other small revenues, or general revenues overall for a total of $2.3 million there, which gives you then the net change in operations, adding 578, 571 on a full accrual basis to your bottom line there. And if we move back a page, on page 15, this is your balance sheet overall. The balance sheet overall is comprised of what's left over. So if we were to close the district on June 30th, what do we have left in reserves in our assets, and what do we owe in our liabilities? What gives us what's left over in our reserves for future periods there. So if we weren't able to earn one more dollar, we have about $3 million in the bank there in cash, and that's to get us mainly because at the June 30th, to get us through our dry yield period, because you're not receiving any funds really until the December 10th, after the December 10th property tax payment, when it's really due. So that comes in around December 25th. There's the Christmas present, we call it. Then we went, the next one is the April 10th payment, somewhere around Easter gift. So as we're seeing the cycle, those were the two bulk, main distribution of your funds, right, of your funds come in. So you need these operating funds here at the end of the year to get you through that dry yield period. So property and other assessments available there, some other accounts receivable, some prepaid items. Other non-current assets there's your net other post-employment benefit, or OPEB, that you have as a positive position, as an asset, based on the funding contribution during the year. Had to pay some bills there at the end of the year. But the biggest number, of course, on there, the elephant overall in the room, is down the net pension liability, note number 6 overall, for $1.9 million. And that, of course, is an actuarial valuation number. And if we go to page 39, we can talk about that a little more in depth. So on page 39, to take a look at that overall liability there and the change in that liability between the two periods overall, right in the middle of the page there, and these are measurement periods. We are 1 year behind in the calculation on the measurement period on page 39. This is 15 versus 16, because it takes CalPERS a whole year to provide the audit and the information to be incorporated in your financial statements. So your financial statements, June 30th, 17, we're putting in a 16 number, so we're 1 year behind, because it takes CalPERS so long to distribute the information out from their system and have it audited and then presented to the auditor, and then we implement it into your statement there. So the first column there, the total, the planned total pension liability, that's a calculation based on the actuaries. The actuaries, basically, they make your calculation based on your census overall of your organization, of those active employees and your retired employees receiving benefits overall from CalPERS. So they take the census, everybody's placed on a mortality table based on, you know, gender, race, age, and the mortality table will then factor into their calculations overall of the total pension liability. Then we look to the next column there, and the next column is your bank with CalPERS, okay? So it's a fiduciary relationship here. There is your calculation, there is your bank at CalPERS. The difference is your net pension liability. And the decrease there in your bank of $175,691 is due to the CalPERS investment portfolio only making 0.3% during this period right there. We calculate the overall portfolio on a 7.5% overall factor. That's what they've said when they've done their 10-year, 30-year, 20-year stress test, that they're able to bring that in. But we've seen since 14 being 16.8%, down to 8.3%, down to 3%, down to 0.3%. So hopefully we'll see something. I mean, the market, if you look on the page before, page 38 there, you can see their funding strategy overall. The investment type, these used to be switched years ago. You know, global fixed income 20%, global equity 51%. So if they're still staying in with this with their portfolio overall, that right there says that they're heavy into the stock market. And if the Trump bump, or whatever we want to call this, rise in the market there, problem is with this type of benefit overall, and it's just the understanding of this type of an annuitant benefit overall, it's very hard to play the stock market, because the stock market, that's going to Vegas. Really is. The investment managers, if this type of benefit, really need one thing overall, a good fixed income market. Because if I'm an investment manager at CalPERS, I want to be able to buy a 10-year security at 5%, earning 5%. Now, if I can't do that, it really makes the portfolio suffer, because that's what you're trying to invest in to provide that liquid cash interest benefits. With the equity in the stock market, you're churning and burning your portfolio, trying to reach a dividend date or something to be able to pay it out with dividends, if dividends are paid out in the stock you have there. If not, you're churning and burning. So that's costing fees for churning and burning your portfolio to provide a cash flow. So, but that's all. Your only responsibility overall for that is your pay-go, and your pay-go overall for the year, your expenditure for the year. If I turn the page here, I believe I'll find it. Your overall expenditure for the year was $203,164, okay? So remember, these estimates there are based on, you know, future activity, retirement and things, based on a funding formula and a percentage used in there. But what you're really just, your pay-go is your pay-go and your payroll periods throughout the year. That's what you're really, you know, on a current year basis, what is your cost. But overall, they do that to kind of show you, you know, where are you in a scheme of things. And if you look back on the last page, 48, page 48, it overall says that in that first column there, you have your overall portfolio that you're, on a fiduciary basis, you're about 75%, 74.06% funded overall, 75%, 3/4 funded. That's excellent. That's better than many. City of Detroit, 33%. City of Chicago, 28%. 74%, good shape. Thank you very much. Any questions?
The returns on page 38, are those back from 16?
The returns?
Yeah, the investment type and the allocation.
On page 38?
Yes.
That's their planned strategic portfolio, and yes, that is from a year before.
So this year, you know, the stock market did very well, but I've been involved with the market for years and years, and, you know, what goes up, it's going to come down.
Yeah.
Vanguard, HSBC, they're all saying this is the year it's going to come down. So that 0.3 is actually probably going to be, well, this year will be good. It could be 15, 20%.
We did see some rises, so at 6/30/17, there should be something in there. And then if something starts to happen now before 6/30/18, you know, that's where they base their overall yield. So.
Right. So as the actuarial numbers go, as things go, again, we don't know what's going to happen with the stock market. But so when do we become Vallejo, if ever?
Well, remember, you're still there. Vallejo was a interesting. Vallejo, on their basis, was they had an MOU for their public safety, their fire and their police, where they would pay the fire and police based on 10 large cities throughout the state of California there. And so their salaries and benefits were based on an average of these 10 large cities there. And they had kind of had, with the 5 surrounding counties there, they had an agreement that everybody would be paying the same, so no, we don't have these lateral transfers all the time. Well, something happened at the end of that year, and 2 weeks before year end, the police chief and the fire chief and 4 of each of their high-ranking deputies either retired or quit left the agency right then before June 30th. Well, what happened was their back vacation and sick leave contributions that were being made to CalPERS upon retirement or termination all came due, and they were in the hole millions of dollars from that exit at that point in time, where they had to be in receivership for a year. They didn't have enough cash flow.
And let me rephrase that, because I didn't know there was so much specifics with Vallejo.
Oh, yeah, Vallejo was
When,
very.
based on, you know, all these actuarial things, is there a point, and 75%, 74% is very good, obviously, where it would overwhelm us? Is that 5 years down the road, 10, 20 years down the road?
Well, that's what we're gonna see now, because the discount rate from 7.5% over the next 3 years will be reduced to 7.375, 7.25, 7.0. Bringing down the discount rate, you can see from the chart in there, gets you closer to, gives you more of a liability overall. And the market helps the liability overall by, instead of putting a contribution in, it's putting the investment earnings in there. So that's what you just have to watch each year, see what the trend is going, but the cost is going to unfortunately go up, because they don't believe that 7.5 is sustainable. 7.0 is where they're going to believe that's their new target goal, but they're gonna ramp it down slowly for political reasons, instead of taking a haircut all at once, because of the cost. So, as long as you know, that was a very bad year for CalPERS, but we've seen change in the market, see where it goes. So, you're still in a good position because you still have a very decent bank there. And you and about every other special district out there is really around the 70-75% percentage rate, and that's where they want to keep you overall, moving forward. So, once that starts to dip, they see that dipping down, they're going to change the allocation a little bit differently to make contributions either more from members or contributions from the employers. So
we're still $2 million in the hole right now. And last year we were 1.5.
You're 1.5. Yeah. And you can see, usually you see the bank from the contribution, increase in contributions, investment earnings. On top of that, your bank's supposed to go up. Unfortunately, your bank, because of the earnings ratio percentage, went down. Fortunately, that's what it was. So.
Can you go back to page 5, please?
Sure.
And you talked about operating grants. They're not a part of the HUD funds, or did you find anything in there? It's my recollection that
No, the funds you received, you know, the California Library grant, other grants that you received, some other donations and things that you received in there. We don't call them for governments, we don't call them contributions. Donations, we call them grants, operating and capital. For a lot of the expansion work that you had done here, you received some money, so, yeah, your improvements, so. In the nonprofit world, we call that contributions and donations. In government world, grants, operating grants, capital grants.
So, Paul, you and I had a conversation on the phone about
Yeah.
the audit in early December.
Yes.
And one of your suggestions was to possibly investigate pulling out of CalPERS. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there is a cost, of course. There's an exit cost overall to pull out of CalPERS, and it's expensive. It's very, very expensive. The other things that you do have is you do have your OPEB benefit, your secondary benefit there, your healthcare benefit. That's something more that we want to look at, because that's something you have more control over than the contract you do have with CalPERS. So you would discuss more about the ability for employees to retain that type of benefit. You would either increase the years of service, decrease the amount of the benefit, do things that you have control over. Contract with CalPERS, there is an exit number, there is a present value exit number, and then there is the exit number and the cost associated with that exit. It is a benefit, it is a way to retain and get employees into public service, whereas, in the private sector, they're either looking for, to be taken care of, where in the private sector, that's being taken care of is either your 401k, contributions match, or equity. So the aspect of that is, for retention, and if everybody else is doing that, you kind of want to do the same thing, because it's hard to retain, members within there giving that same type of benefit or withholding that same type of benefit, so. The costs, once you're in, yeah. So, but like I said, you're only really, you need to meet the pay-go. Don't look at the liability as, oh my God, we gotta pay it off tomorrow, because it's not a mortgage. It is not, I'm gonna drop $300,000 in there and it's gonna go $300,000. No, it's not. It's gonna be recalculated, and it's gonna be recalculated again by the actuaries. So that first column number is a moving target. The second column, of course, that's your bank, and how's your bank doing, the bank account first. So, I would say, yeah, when you're in, you're in. So, what you can look at is the other benefits that you provide, and stuff like that, and where you can tweak. If you're looking for savings and costs, you know, you make those types of benefits. Those are grandfathered in or grandfathered in. Those moving forward, current actives, then you have to, you know, increase the amount of service to be able to provide it, to be able to receive that type of benefit. So that's where you have the power to do that, so.
Okay, thank you. Another question also based on that conversation was a clarification of your firm's examination of our internal controls. And you talked with me a little bit about that. Can you clarify that?
We look overall. We're not here to give you opinion. We're here to give you opinion on financial reports. That's what we do here. We're not here to give you opinion overall on internal controls. We do look at your internal controls overall to base from our sample selection so that we don't have to look at every transaction. I can look at every transaction. I like that contract. I don't think you want to pay that contract. But the overall aspect of that is we do sample through the internal controls. We look through your revenue cycle, your payroll cycle, your bank investment reconciliation cycle, your expenditure cycle, and we look at and we evaluate those overall to believe is there controls in place, and if those controls are in place throughout the period as we look to stratify our sample throughout a period there, then we're able to rely on those internal controls as much as saying as our test work that we believe how the numbers come to rest should be coming to rest materially correct and stuff, that we shouldn't have a lot of material you know, mistakes in those numbers as they come to rest at the balance sheet date. So from that, we've overall looked at that, and we believe there's adequate controls here over for the size and numbers and depth of transactions that you have overall for this organization. You're not McDonald's, you're not Wendy's, you're not a manufacturing thing where you need a lot of internal controls, a lot of hands in the pie there. So the amount and volume of your transactions, your biggest thing is you're processing payroll. That's your biggest transaction in writing checks overall here. And that's kind of on a cyclical basis and stuff like that. Everybody looks at every check before it goes out the door. And payroll, everybody knows this is what we get paid, this is it. So the overall volume, and then on the other side, the county collects all your property tax money. So the amount of controls that you have already built in there is already in there. So we felt pretty adequate with that. So.
You did a survey of payroll and checked to make sure payroll was being issued according to what the pay rate was.
Exactly. We take the employee file with the step and all their file and paperwork in there. We vouch that to actual payroll checks that are being cut, so everybody's getting paid the correct time. They had overtime. We see approvals. We see all that stuff in there. So we're looking overall at the transaction basis and stratifying that throughout. You know, we take one payroll period here, one payroll period here, one payroll period here. If you're looking at the calendar year as a circle, and we sample from that overall to get an understanding that if there were people absent or people were on vacation, who was running the payroll department, who was doing this, that we're able to understand that, you know, payroll was processed correctly during this period. So
your purview isn't how the step was determined. Your purview is to see, okay, here's the step number, then to compare and make sure that's...
Yes.
So
we weren't in the process of determining the step, but this is what the step says. The person's at this step, that's their hourly rate, this is the total hours they worked. Time card signed off, executed, bingo, total pay, taxes taken out, so, yeah.
And then the last suggestion that you had made when we spoke was that you thought we could actually or should examine our internal controls around purchasing.
Yeah, procurement is always something, you know, that if there's something that you want to look at overall and stuff is I mean, we'll drive the accounts payable down to a contract or something that's going on there. But if you're looking at something for overall, ability out there, purchasing is always a place to hone up and stuff like that. Are you getting 3 bids? What's your purchasing process? What's your levels? What do you need for this? What do you need to bring to the board? What's general manager sign off? That's always a good place to, if you're gonna look at something. It's a policy procedure basis for that is being followed within from, the board's there to make policy procedure. It's a good place for policy and procedure, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Armando?
I got a question on page 43, the litigation and the taking care that, there's a belief that any, I guess, possible litigation is not material, but, how privy are you to know what, without going into details, you don't know any litigation, what the cost is going to be, what's the determination of what's going to be carried out?
Is the mic on?
Yeah. Just if there's anybody that's suing you
Right.
personally, the organization, or if there's an action that's not being covered by insurance and stuff. Usually you look at it based on insurance and stuff. What is your overall insurance is covering and what's not being covered by insurance, so.
So where did you get the information to determine it's not material, if there are litigation possibilities out there?
We discussed that overall with management at that point in time.
You did, or what?
We did, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Our recommended action is to approve the annual financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2017, conducted by independent certified auditors of Hunt Group. Do I have a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve.
And seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Going back to the original agenda, we're now back to number 4, closed session. So the board will recess into closed session pursuant to the Ralph M. Brown Act, Government Code, for purposes of discussing and taking action on the following items. At 5:38. We'll now recess back into open session, and our interim secretary for the meeting, Armando Zambrano, will read the public report of any reportable action from closed session.
No action can be taken on either of the 2 items today because the presenters that we were expecting to be here today did not show up. So no action on item 4A and no action on item 4B. And also, Mindy Capay, the director of the library, notified the board president at 4:48 p.m. that she was not going to be able to attend today's meeting.
Now we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, public communication. Individuals may address the board regarding any item on or not on the agenda, but the board may take no action on any item not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per item and 12 minutes per topic. The Brown Act does not allow us to take any action on anything not on the agenda. If speaking before the board, please give your name and state the agenda item and or issue you wish to address. We can take general comments, and we can also take public comment at the time of the agenda item. A couple of public comments submitted do not have agenda items listed, and some do. So I will ask Mark Mariscal to, if he'd like to address his comments at the beginning or at the agenda item.
Mark Mariscal, resident of Altadena. I actually have an item for 7 that's not on the agenda, and then the other ones I'll stick to the agenda items, if that's okay.
Yeah, I didn't see that 7's on there. Okay, yes.
So the with the news today of a vacancy, I would just say it would be good for you that when you agendize this for the next meeting and discuss it, that you might think about the options that would even include not filling the position immediately and letting it go through the election that's going to be coming up in November. So that's an option that you have. And so because you have to put it on the agenda to at least discuss it at the February meeting, really the earliest you can possibly get, nominations or people to come and do presentations might be March or April. So with that, you might just consider moving that into this. So I just wanted to share that with you. If I may ask for a privilege of talking about the past item that just went, because I wanted to speak on it, but we went past it already, 9B.
Yes, go ahead.
Entertain me on that?
Yeah.
So on the audit, I want to thank you for the questions that you actually asked the auditor, and the auditor answered them. It was part of the discussion that, I think it was mentioned at the last meeting, that you were going to follow up with the auditor before this meeting, and so it was very good to not only hear that the follow-up took place, but that you actually then set out here publicly what it is you talked about, and then he responded to those kind of things. And I do believe, and so I'll just tell you, when you went into closed session, I went outside and gave Nicole a high five, because I thought his answers for, the procedures and all the things he checked on demonstrated that the staff was doing what it is they needed to do and easily satisfied your auditor. But I will say that I do agree, and I think I mentioned to you just in passing, that the idea that following up on what he said makes sense, because you do have that fiduciary responsibility, and you can ask a little more. I would just suggest that before you decide you want to go hire another audit firm, that you would, in public, ask what the current procedures are for purchasing, so that everyone can hear it, and then you can have maybe a subcommittee that looks into it, and then if you need to dive further into it, that you look at that. So that's what I wanted to share under item 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, 9. Thank you so much.
Then we do have another public comment that's associated with a particular, with multiple agenda items, sorry. Mr. Amy, you have 3 comments listed. Would you like to address them at the point in the agenda, or all at once?
I can do them now.
Okay.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda that I wanted to speak to is indeed the audit, and I just wanted to congratulate the district and staff on such a stellar audit. It's, blemish-free and wonderful, and that isn't always the case in a public agency. Unfortunately, it's all too often absolutely the opposite. So congratulations, everyone, on that. The next item actually is one of the new business items, the resolution that you have about adding board members and volunteers to the district's workers' comp policy, and covering you folks and all those volunteers who go into the library and do things at their own risk, basically. And the idea that staff has brought this forward to you as a suggestion, I think is wonderful for a variety of reasons. Even if it costs a few bucks, that would be fine. But the fact that it doesn't cost the library district anything, I think shows that staff is actually following what is possible and making recommendations that make sense in a lot of ways. Many people wouldn't realize that, say, one of you walking up the steps of the library trips and falls through your own fault, basically. At that point, if you're an artist or a crafts person or a calligrapher or whatever, and you break your arm, you're out. But by being on the library's workers' comp, you're covered. Hopefully it'll never have to come to pass, but what makes it important is not just the idea of damage and injury to the individual, but it comes to damage and injury to the reputation of the agency, from the standpoint that if someone is injured at the library and they're a volunteer, and something terrible happens and they're out of work or out of whatever for a while, it's a blemish on the district. This way, by getting everyone covered under the workers' comp, that isn't going to happen. Worst case scenario, you can say, well, we were covered, or they are covered by our workers' comp, take it up with them. Last item has to do with the Brown Act issue. That's 13C. At the last meeting, I had suggested that should the library be challenged in any way with Brown Act training, I would be more than happy to pay for it. I'm glad to see that staff has actually gotten me off the hook on that. by suggesting compliant Brown Act training at no additional cost to the library district and via your computer should you wish to as a board member. The only problem I found with it is that as a member of the public, when I went to try and log on today to see if I couldn't take some of those lovely free courses through the Risk Management Association that the library district does use, the Special District Risk Management Association, I couldn't because I don't have the login. I can live with that. Additionally, however, I would like to suggest that online training is one thing, but spending time in sort of a group session can be much more enlightening. And I would suggest that for this board to grow and become more effective as a unit, it would be wonderful for this board to get training not only in the Brown Act, but in boardsmanship and some of the other categories that the Special District Risk Management Association makes available. Yes, you can do it online if you want to, and you can tick it off in your boxes, but doing it in person and with staff present, even if it costs money, would be a much more effective way of doing that, I believe. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have a public comment request from Mark Goldschmidt about the Bob Lucas branch. Thank you.
Yeah, this is actually item 12B, presentation of project plan for Bob Lucas Branch Library. Well, this is something that really has been, I read the report on page 102 and 104 of the notes online today, and I was really impressed by a very concise inventory of what's to be done and all the questions that need to be asked before they're done, and what's been done and what's going to be done. I thought it was a really nice job, so my compliments to the team on the library who put that together. The building, the current building is inadequate, as we know, and we really need something in West LTD very, very badly. We have a lot of youth over there, and we have a lot of opportunity to reach them. And I would really encourage, I would encourage the board to actually take the action of investigating that in a real profound way, a strategic plan that would really look into first of all, the needs that are there, but there's also quite a bit of real estate over there that something might be available. The BTC, the Business Technology Center, is kind of moribund right now. That should be looked into. It belongs to the county Community Development Corporation, and it's, you know, it's a fairly new facility, and it's all the code and earthquake proof and so on. It's not real attractive, but it's actually not cheaply built. It's actually pretty well built. We should look into that, and there are other large properties on you know, along Lincoln. I think that's the area that probably we need to look at the closest, and really get that going. It's going to take a while to figure out what your needs are and what's available, and then negotiating a space and finding the money to do it is going to take a while too. But I think that yes, we should keep the Bob Lucas Library going, but eventually that can be sold or whatever, and you can move on to a new place, because it just doesn't seem to be that 1,600 square foot facility is anywhere near adequate. So I'm just encouraging you to go ahead and move ahead, and let's plan for a new library. And something, the other thing I said about the BTC, finally, just parenthesis, it's, you know, it's basically an incubator for technology. So it seems like a really natural thing if you get kids in there and they're learning about, you know, coding and digital literacy. Then there's the entrepreneurial DNA of the place too, is right there, and that can bring a lot of people up into the age of robotics and cyberspace. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We have a public comment from Dave Herman.
Hello, folks. My name is Dave Herman. I was the chair of the library's Parks Tax Renewal Campaign. I was a member of the Friends of the Altadena Library. I was a board member of the Altadena Library Foundation. Over the last 3 years, I have seen a decimation of our long-term loyal library staff, a driving off of friends of the Altadena Library, a driving off of members of the Altadena Library Foundation, a driving off of longtime supporters of our library, and a string of 11, I think we're up to now, lawsuits against our district. About a year ago, I resigned as the president of the foundation and ended all my formal support for the library. I'd reached a point where I felt that I could no longer trust the current director. I felt that I was repeatedly being manipulated, lied to, and misled. I heard stories of staff member abuse by the current director, stories that I understand have been documented in the employee survey. I experienced and witnessed mistreatment of library supporters and volunteers, and I could not in good conscience solicit donations from community members due to the fear of the proceeds being used to settle lawsuits. Today, I request that the Board of Trustees begin a process of repairing the damage and healing our broken library. I request that the trustees initiate a search for a new director. I request that the current director be moved out of her position of decision-making authority and staff oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We have a public request from Cynthia Kumanchik.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Kumanchik, and I'm a resident of Altadena. And I understand that you will be conducting a performance evaluation of the library director tonight. I have the opposite viewpoint. I continue to support Mindy Katay. I believe she's doing a fine job in bringing programs, events, and planning to the Altadena Library. And her current report tonight, I believe, provides a very detailed and comprehensive package of what the library has done under her leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a public comment from Lisa Cavalier.
Hello, Happy New Year. I'm Lisa Cavalier, and I wanted to speak for just a minute about leadership. I'm from Collaborate Pasadena, and it's our vision that all children in Altadena and Sierra Madre grow up in a safe, stable, and supportive environment that prepares them for success in school and in life. We're grateful to the Altadena Library for your partnership and collaboration on many, many fronts. Some, for example, are the upcoming screening of Go Public, which will be here soon with PUSD Superintendent McDonald, library staff serving on our Student Success Work Group, Altadena Town Council Education Gathering that was here, opening the doors last fall for our Collaborate Pasadena Neighborhood Leadership Institute. I've spent a fair amount of time pondering what I've observed in the last few months in these meetings. The conclusion I've drawn is that all that I've seen far exceeds professional limits, personnel issues or monitoring, and even simple decorum. I believe honestly that it is personal and that is driving everything. As a new leader of the board, I implore you, John, to take a very hard look at how you will lead. I ask you to dig deep and figure out your motivations and act to clean things up. This is about character, and people are watching. This is about an organization that serves children and families, and you have a duty to honor that. As Mayor Garcetti said over the weekend, I think he was paraphrasing Charles Blau, there is no right time to do the wrong thing and no wrong time to do the right thing. I implore you to dig deep, John, do the right thing, repair the mess that you've made, and restore our hope in this governing body. Thank you.
So I've seen that quote attributed to Martin Luther King.
Awesome, yes.
We have a public comment from Anna Cruz Najarro.
Can you see me?
Yeah. It's a big computer.
My name is Anna Cruz, and I live in Altadena, near Bob Lucas Library, and I'm here so excited because I'll be joining you guys from now on every month, and I also serve the community at the Sacred Heart Church in Altadena, and a lot of our children community are in need of computers and books and a better space in that side of the area. So I ask you guys as board members to help us out here.
What about after-school tutoring? Is there
Yes,
any,
yes. Tutoring, and also they are in need of learning how to read and write.
Was your group aware that there was recently ACT and SAT tutoring here at this library?
Yes, but a lot of them don't have transportation, so that's an issue.
It'd be easier if it was over there.
Yes.
And you're also aware that the library at Bob Lucas is closed on Saturdays, right?
Yes, we learned that
Would it be
too.
beneficial if the Bob Lucas library would be open on Saturdays?
Yes, of course. That would be very, very, very helpful for our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have a public comment from Charmaine Riel. Yeah, I think she might have departed, so we'll have to take that at the next meeting. And Mark, you wanted the rest of yours in the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, we will move forward to personnel appointments, resignations, terminations, transfers. Ryan, is there anything of note?
Nothing other than what's on the agenda.
Congratulations to Nicole, Melissa, and Helen. And to Abel for being hired. We'll move on to financial reports. The financial reports for October and November 2017 covers pages 3 to 25 in the board packet. I think since Mindy's not here, maybe Ryan or if Nicole's still here can answer questions.
We can take questions.
Okay. Sorry, I lost you. So and actually a clarification for everybody's edification, one of the public commenters said workers' comp does not cost the district anything. Can you explain workers' comp as far as the district is covered?
But if you wanted to talk about
yeah, that would really be a question for Jen.
Okay.
So I do have a clarification on 12A, but I did get to that.
Okay, yep. So I do have a question, actually, line 5270, page 14, workers' comp expenditures are actually at 66% of our budget, at 33% of the year for the first quarter of fiscal year 18. Has there been an increase in claims during that time precipitating that expenditure, or was it just a more expensive claim? Do you guys know?
Yeah, so I wouldn't come to me as our public services director. I don't know if you are aware, Nicole, of any particular rising claims or more claims for workers' comp?
I would say more this year.
So, okay. And we can talk about it more during the resolution period, but workers' comp is not free.
And I didn't say that.
You said it's free to the library.
I said that there's no fiscal impact to the library of adding you people and the volunteers, according to the report.
Just for clarification, workers' compensation is not free.
And that's not.
What's the clarification?
So are we trying to skip to 12? Because the resolution was sent to us by SCRMA. Currently, just the board members are on workers' comp. So if you guys sign the resolution, you can put whoever, as you see on the resolution, there's a checkbox. You guys can check whoever you want. It's so that you can continue with the board members on workers' comp. If you want to add other volunteers, that's something that the library staff would get a quote from SDRMA. That would be an additional cost. If you sign the resolution and continue your coverage, that's no cost. But just so that you guys can get covered, that resolution has to be adopted. That's
So we don't know what the quote come out.
right, no,
for
so
volunteers. We have to-
that's, and that's the thing, you guys can have that discussion, and you can put that you wanna cover volunteers. It doesn't mean you're adding them, it means that in the future, if we decide to add them, they can be covered as well.
Thank you.
So SDRMA initiated it, it wasn't staff initiated.
Right, they sent
For
a
clarification.
letter, which I have if you wanna see it, I
Yeah,
make
no, we have
copies
it.
of the
Thank you.
I have another question, line 6120, also on page 14. At least for the first quarter of this year, the books budget seems significantly underspent. Is that a timing fluctuation with?
I think Stella ordering would be able to speak a little better to that. There was a break in the ordering for a significant period of time.
Oh, you're good.
So, because of the, migration to the new ILS, we could not do any spending, so to speak, of, the first 2 months of the fiscal year, so that definitely impacted us. We're trying to catch up. In fact, I just sent an email today to selectors, but that definitely, 2 full months was an impact, but it was completely unavoidable because we just, due to the function of migrating, which you know about,
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions on the financial report? Gwen? Armando? May I have a motion to accept and file the financial report? All in favor? Aye. The financial reports are accepted and filed. 9B was the presentation by the auditor, and we've already taken care of that. The consent calendar. The consent calendar is a set of reports and information that we vote on it as a block all together to approve, or we pull individual items off of the consent calendar based on having questions or having incorrect information. So may I, is anybody interested in pulling any items from the consent calendar? Anything else? Can I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I did have a discussion on one of the items.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you did. I'm sorry. Yeah, before we vote.
Mark Mariscal, Altadena resident. So on the district director's report, although I'm not quite sure if it's, couldn't quite exactly tell it's the director's report, but I assume it is. I just got to tell you, this fence really looks nice. I think it was very nice. I don't know that family that lives there, although I know that family's owned that property for a long time. I know that it would have been a great addition for the library to, but, but that fence really looks good. I see that they're willing to kind of work with you guys to take care of it over a period of time. I mean, I know that we had a kind of a raggedy fence up there to keep people from falling, but there's no question of the liability from the library's point of view of anybody falling off of that edge. If it had come from this side that way, even though that property probably would have had to be in the middle of that fight in any legal issue, but I just think it was a very good thing to see that fence go up, so I wanted to thank you and the staff for that. And I think that was the only other thing in 10, the HR update part, there's another item, 12C, so I'm going to talk to 12C.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as amended? Oh, you already, sorry, I forgot. And a second? When, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None. The consent calendar, carries. 11A is consideration of items removed from the consent calendar. That is approval of the minutes, regular meeting held November 27th, 2017.
Yeah, for years and years and years and years and years, the practice has been the minutes are a summary, and that's what the minutes are. Robert's Rules of Order say it's a summary, it's not a transcript, it's not word for word of what was there. For some reason, in October, November, the minutes were changed from a summary, the way they've been for decades, to a transcript, word for word. So I'd like to see that modified the way it used to be, and then we can put it.
So the minutes as submitted were revised back to that one.
Great.
Any questions? Yes.
Can we take a look at that?
Yeah. So just a point of clarification for the public, our minutes were not accurately being recording according to common rule, Robert Rules of Order. We also used examples of other government agencies and how they do minutes, and our admin assistant altered the minutes, revised the minutes to be in the proper format according to Robert's Rules of Order, and also included links to the video presentation for every single item, including public comment. So you're able to go on to the library's YouTube channel and look, without watching the entire meeting, you can see a particular item on the agenda at that point. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes as written then? Yeah.
That's where we want to.
A motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and I also make a motion to approve the minutes.
Speak up, please.
That is for November 27th.
You can't hear him.
Sorry.
I'll offer that motion to approve the minutes from November 27th, according to the Robert's Rules of Order.
Can I have a second? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved as written. Before we get to item 12, one of our last public commenter has returned. So, Charmaine Rito.
As a former ALD employee, I've been asked to appear to share my experiences having worked with the director. As you may know, while I was employed, I served on the Staff Association, which allowed me to communicate with the majority of staff, most of whom are no longer employed here. The following are comments that were made by other staff members on their district-mandated morale survey. 1, since the director's arrival, I feel devalued, ignored, and marginalized. I feel I cannot express myself without fear of reprisal. While there are issues with the rapid rate of change, the main issue is how she treats people. 2, the current district director is not a good fit for the staff, perhaps not even the community. Overall, 2 things need to be addressed. 1 is the rate of change. I don't mind change, as most of the staff agrees we need to change and update. However, too many changes are being sloppily executed. The other is a toxic work environment with how people are treated. I have felt condescended to and shut down. I hear the director say unkind things about my coworkers and see firsthand fellow librarians being talked down to. I've seen my immediate supervisor spoken to extremely disrespectfully several times. The following statement was issued by a California judge in response to documentation that I provided regarding a constructive discharge claim. Claimant supervisor treated her hostilely on her first day back from maternity leave. Claimant was reminded of ongoing problems and decided to resign. The work atmosphere was toxic, dysfunctional, abusive, and hostile, and the claimant's manager repeatedly disparaged the claimant while pregnant. Claimant's manager discussed her job performance with other people and embarrassed the claimant in front of coworkers. Claimant supervisor berated her in front of others. Claimant was subjected to verbal abuse and offensive behavior. Claimant left the most recent work with good cause. The appeals board found this conduct of the employer to be abusive and hostile and held that the claimant had good cause for leaving employment. So since I've been asked to come here again, my question is to you, the board. Some are new faces, some are not. Why am I still asked to be coming here? The board, 3 years later. I don't know why. And now it's at the expense of taxpayers like myself who live in Altadena and have to see this on my property tax statement at the end of the year, that I'm supporting a library who supports a director, essentially, that treats its employees like this and the community at large. If I'm being asked to come here again tonight, not the first time I've been asked to come here, to speak on her performance of how she treats people. Thank you.
Okay, new business, item 12A, resolution 201-801, resolution of the governing body of the Altadena Library District declaring that governing body members and volunteers shall be deemed to be employees of the district for the purpose of providing workers' compensation for certain individuals while providing their services. Any discussion?
I have a question, and here it says on page 100, this looks like none, and yet we're hearing today that,
There is no fiscal impact with the resolution. As if you add volunteers to the workers' comp policy, then you're gonna have a fiscal impact, which would be a separate agenda item, in my opinion. The resolution is so that you, as the governing body, can continue to be covered by workers' comp. But if you don't want to approve a new resolution, when you add volunteers, if you decide to have that in the future, you can do it all on this resolution.
do you have a question? So, if
Before we have discussion, sorry, I had forgotten, I did note it on my agenda, but forgot to call, Mark Mariscal had a public comment on 12A.
Thank you, John. Mark Mariscal, so 12A, B, and C, so, but on A, again, I thought the volunteers in the past had been done. If the resolution tonight is really only for the trustees, which I do agree that that has to be done regardless, I would encourage you to direct staff maybe when you set the agenda, when you get to your item for future agendas, that you might consider doing that for the volunteers, at least finding out what the cost is. But I just got to tell you that most public agencies cover their volunteers under a workers' comp plan. And so, I was the president of a statewide association for the Park and Rec fields with, 275,000 volunteers, and they were covered. AYSO covers. I mean, so find out what it is. It might be 2,000 or 3,000. We heard that, there was a net $580,000, from the funds from last year. So finding that couple $1,000, hopefully, if it's that much, shouldn't be that much. But that's on 12A. I do have B and C.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll continue my comments on 12A. And I like the idea of covering the volunteers, it makes sense, but I also like the idea of knowing how much it's gonna be, if it's taxpayer money, we wanna make sure it's a couple thousand, or is it a lot more than that, so at least we make an informed decision before that. But the way that it's written in the agenda is it says, and it's the board members and the volunteers, so,
That would be the resolution. So on the resolution, there's check boxes. And you can, if you just want to do the first one, which would be the board, and approve it that way, you can, but they give you the option to include volunteers. So your resolution is saying that for the purposes of workers' comp, volunteers would be considered employees of the district. To add them to the policy is a separate agenda.
Understood, but the way it is here, it doesn't seem like this is covering it clearly, but okay.
So the trustees coverage has lapsed, or this is just a
No,
renewal
this
of
is a
the?
new, resolution that they sent, SDRMA sent us and said, please have your board approve this so that they can continue to be covered. And I believe it's in the California Labor Code, section 3363.5. So we need the resolution to get back to them, approved saying, yes, our governing body members.
And what's the regular, recurring cycle of that? Do we have to approve this every single year, or does
I
it
don't
cover
think
us
so,
for
I
a
think
certain?
this is the one time.
This is the first time, and only, okay.
And I like the idea, I mean, maybe we direct staff to find out what the amount is gonna be to include all our volunteers in the library.
If we act on this resolution tonight with just the trustees, can we pass another resolution that includes volunteers after acquiring a quote? Okay.
If that's the case, then I believe that the, go ahead and submit that for the trustees. And then recognizing that they're going to also, include, volunteers and come back with, and then where we can get that. But, that's the budget option here.
So if we could be prepared and stay for the next meeting so we can take action on the next meeting.
Any other discussion?
I missed part of it, but you said there was no fiscal impact. Once we approve this, by default, it becomes a fiscal impact.
It does not.
Yeah,
Until you add volunteers to the policy.
So we're already covered on the current one, so this is just a CMRA one. And we approved ourselves, even on the policy.
So we're rolling on
Years later.
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the resolution as written with a check mark next to members of the governing body? And a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. And noted for the minutes that we would like to see these quotes for the other categories listed, because I believe we at least have interns and other volunteers. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, new business item 12B, presentation of project plan for Bob Lucas Branch Library upgrades. I think we were expecting Mindy, Ryan, to
We're
finish it.
expecting Mindy, if you have, board report, it's on page 102, the report that talks about, some of the changes that have taken place, up to the present, going back to 2012, when the sidewalk ramps and wheelchair access were installed, grab bars in the bathrooms, aisle width improved to, meet ADA compliance. In 2016 and 17, there were some more upgrades involving the restructuring of the interior of the library in terms of furniture, new computers, where the computers are located, additional shelving. Outside of the library, the parking lot was resurfaced. The parking lot lighting was upgraded to LED, and then there was a new HVAC system installed. And so this plan looks forward into the future at what other improvements we are currently looking at making at the Bob Lucas Branch. They include, as you can see on the chart on the back, a lot of things that are to be determined, but there's actually several things on the chart that have moved forward. Everything in red has already been completed. You can see what's completed and what's to be determined in the estimated completion date column. Recently, we have added another desktop computer. We've added a 3D printer with a laptop on a cart. To speak more to that, we've actually trained staff members to use the 3D printer, and we have open hours that are starting in February. Those are gonna be on, I think they decided on Monday, 11 to 1, and Wednesday, 3 to 5, where anybody can just walk in, and there will be a staff member there to show them the 3D printer and how to use it if they're interested. The window shades, we are installing tomorrow afternoon. So, there's a bench that was installed, the refrigerator was replaced in the staff room. The rolling furniture is actually nesting, so that when we have programs, they typically fill up the room. If you've ever been to the Bob Lucas French, just the story times that we're doing over there now fill the entire space. So all of the furniture that we've installed flips up and nests together where it can be pushed out and make room for people to come to programs. There are a host of other improvements on this list, including flooring, interior paint, replacing double doors on the street side, automated ADA door on the parking lot side, more parking lot improvements, another flagpole with lighting, and exterior freestanding sign, exterior painting, landscaping and irrigation, additional exterior lighting, updates to the mural, updates to roofing. These are all things that have not happened yet but are in planning, and some of them will need community input. So as you see in the report, the objective of the project is to provide upgrades to the facility that will reduce the utility costs and improve the appearance of the branch. And the scope of the project includes upgrades to technology, the facility's interior and exterior, the landscaping, the collections and the materials in the library. So there's...
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you starting the process. This is something we've been talking about for the last few months, about actually doing something about Lucas. There's been a great amount of attention at this library, and it looks amazing, this library. But our other library branch needs a lot of work. And that community could benefit. And just like Mrs. Cavalier came up and talked about the importance of our children having a safe environment, the children of that area of Altadena deserve to have computers over there. They deserve to have the same kind of, if we're doing ACT, SAT, kind of testing programs here, we should offer the same thing over there. If we offer Saturday hours here, we should offer Saturday hours over there.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, why are we treating Gatlin and Altadena different than here? So it's just a matter of, let's get the ball rolling. This is great. I still think that if we put signage, if we put lighting, if we trim that tree, it'll improve that whole corridor. It won't just be the library that benefits, it'll be that whole block. Lincoln will improve, and we're already starting to see this in businesses up on Lincoln, the coffee shops that are about to be open. So you guys, your planning, your efforts could actually bring about faster change, that's positive change. So please continue with this, but every month, really want to see a lot of improvements. If we had a commentator today, they could benefit from more computers. So whatever it takes to get Chromebooks out there. I know you helped personally in getting the 3D printer out there, so I appreciate you working on that. But we need a better sign. I mean, when I drive by there, it's so dark. There's nothing really that says this is the library for that community. Just like we have signage out here, looks nice. We need the same thing over there. So thanks for the start, but I will keep you asking on to do this. And again, whatever resources it takes to see if we can open on Saturdays for the children and offer after-school tutoring or offer some kind of education services for our children over there on Saturdays. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many staff members are there?
We have 2 full-time staff members and 2 part-time staff members.
Okay. And how much time does the director spend over there?
In terms of working over there or just visiting?
Visiting, working, I mean, it could be a combination of both.
Yeah, she doesn't have an office over there or work out of there. She does visit when we have planning meetings to look at the facilities and things like that.
Okay. I think it's important for someone in leadership to oversee some of that and to let them know that they're a part of the system. It's really good. Thank you.
I'd like like to express my gratitude to the project team for not only putting the plan together, but actually accomplishing so much in such a short time. And also, I'd like to express gratitude to Trustee Zambrano for continuing to advocate for the needs of the Bob Lucas branch, as well as my gratitude to the members of the public who have brought issues to our attention and asked for additional services over there so we could address it in this continued fashion. Thank you. Any other comments, public comment? Mark?
Mark Mariscal, I'll actually speak for Friends of the Altadena Library and the Foundation. So the Foundation actually, I think I've reported back in October, November, that we've set aside $40,000. And I would tell you, honestly, as you're having this discussion about Saturdays, that I'd rather see the request from the library come from the point of view of helping to see what it costs to fund Saturdays, because I think that's an easier sell, if that's the right word, when we're asking community members to contribute to the Foundation and or to the Friends to keep a library open on Saturday. We have to be a little careful, as we heard Dave, who led the campaign when we did the prop for 2014, and it's a 10-year proposition. Nothing saying that this board can't think about doing it again in 2020, going early, and extending it for 15 years, something along those lines. But again, I think the idea for either, because the Friends, Granny asked me at a Friends meeting a couple meetings ago, how much do we of the Friends money actually goes to the branch? And more than 50% of the money goes to the branch, considering it's a small branch. But that's because of the literacy program and the way that we help fund that, because that's where a lot of it is. But I was talking to Anna during the break, and I'll just tell you that the idea that we're not, at least there, I don't know if we're doing it at the branch, I asked her to ask you, but teaching literacy, because there's some people that really want to, adults that want to learn to read, and that's part of the state literacy program. So, from that point of view, I just think it's great. But from the Foundation point of view, I think if you want to open on Saturdays, at least through June 30th or something along those lines, and you can talk about it in your budget from there. Instead of spending $17,000 on exterior paint or interior paint, one of the two, I think it'd be better to try to get your hours open, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we have any action on the project plan other than encouragement to continue going, expression of gratitude.
No long-range plan for actually finding another place?
So in the board packet, in the project plan, it's noted that even some of the planned improvements probably can't come to pass without us having a bigger facility and have that directed by a strategic plan. So that's definitely, right now we're trying to improve the current facility within our current means, but it's definitely, it's been discussed, and the technology center has been talked about, and some other real estate as well over there. So 12C. Mark, did you have a public comment on 12C?
Yes. Okay. Mark Mariscal, I do want to thank you for indulging my public comments and encourage any of the members to talk about a few things. But I'll just say this, HR Networks were here. I don't know what they were here for one of the first two closed session items. But I do know you guys had a discussion about the salary steps. And this is, again, I've shared this publicly, I want to say it again publicly, that as you look at what you want to do with your employees and the salary steps, almost all public agencies go with salary steps. There's a reason for it, having, of course, to do with the 1920s and 30s of these civil service rules and all those things in California. And so, the idea that maybe it would only be, a salary range all done on merit just doesn't work in the public sector. And so I really want to remind you, I know your director had a little different direction on that, and I've talked with her a few times, and I don't know where you guys will be eventually on it, but when you get to that point, because HR Network says, they're not there yet, that's why there's not a report today. It was just, they were just going to tell you, we're still just talking with staff, right? So I'm giving you their report, but because I did talk to the young, whatever her name was, the one that was here. So anyway, it is important to keep salary steps. It really is a good tool for employees.
Okay, thank you. So, item 12C has been an item that the board has been, has requested of HR Network and been waiting to receive, and I won't say for how long because I'll get the amount of time, but it's been a very long time. And their report today, they weren't asked to give this report. Mindy was to issue the statement that they're continuing to work on a recommendation about how to alter the possible compensation, how to possibly alter the compensation program, and also revise the wage scales based on some comparative analysis of other employees in similar types of jobs. So they're continuing that work. We leave it on the agenda so we make sure that that we remember to get a report from them next month. On to old business, item 13A. Mark, your public comment, is it A, B, or C?
A and C.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark Mariscal, 13A. Again, I don't know if, I think Gwen was the chair, or I don't know who the chair is, but again, coming to a few people from the community that either, you know, have been part of strategic plan or something along the lines, when you do finally get a committee, if you, I mean, I don't know, maybe you've met and we're going to hear that, but, you know, there are a few people that might be able to help with the bylaws on helping you bring them up to date. So I just want to remind you that the public is willing to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And 13C when you get there.
And then, so Gwen, can I ask you for an update on the ad hoc committee for bylaws review?
That's in process.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear. That's in process. We're working on it. It won't be until after February that we will be able to bring something to you. And we're working on committee to work that out.
And I'm working with Glenn.
Okay. Yeah.
And
The ad hoc committee consisted of Trustee McMullins and Trustee Delana Garcia, and with her resignation, Trustee Zambrano has offered to step up and be on that ad hoc committee to review the bylaws. And one note on that, I want to express gratitude from all the board members that the staff were able to review the bylaws and make suggestions for improvement before we addressed the actual bylaws and made suggestions for change. 13B, update on installation of 3D printer.
That's the Branch 3D printer, which I spoke to a little about a few minutes ago. The one thing I'd add to it is that in addition to the open hours on Mondays and Wednesdays where people can just come in during the open hours and get some help, it's also by appointment as well. If you can't make it to the open hours, you can email our branch manager and make an appointment to sit in and learn 3D printing. So there are other hours, other time slots.
And Ryan, I think last time you gave some examples of some things that you had seen our public working on, but yeah.
There's one on my desk. Somebody had left this in our 3D printer upstairs, which is a nut and bolt that they had 3D printed, which actually screws on. It works well. I've seen octopus. I think Christopher, when he was testing out the 3D printer, printed an octopus. Someone printed a little statue that looked like the one in Indiana Jones that he took off. So I thought that was cool. It was almost to scale. It looked like that little idol. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with it.
Highly educational. Right. Okay, great. 13C under old business is Brown Act Board training update, and I think Mark had a public comment.
Mark, you should say.
13B, everybody should have clapped after 13B.
That's right. I will. Because Ryan did a lot of work on that, right? And you thanked him already, so that was good. So on 13C Brown Act training, I see the special district. I know Renee briefly mentioned something about it. Again, I think I've been more praising at this meeting than I have been with this board in some previous meetings, and I'm going to, unfortunately going to be able to do that again right now, because at the beginning of this meeting, before the meeting started, I had a quick discussion with the new board president about when I handed him my public speaking sheet, and it had the different items, and you know, we just had a quick discussion that he was probably going to have all the items be addressed, but all addressed under the public comment line 7. So I hope, and then after the closed session, you said, no, we're gonna go ahead and let them, for anybody that wanted to speak on the different areas. So I hope that you at least, because I don't know if this has to do with you guys are gonna get your Brown Act or you just finished your Brown Act training, I'm not sure of that, but I will say that I hope you see the relevance of somebody from the public wanting to speak when you get to that item, so that it helps you maybe make a better decision. And I think the perfect example was the questioning of the volunteer issue with the workers' comp, and hearing the opinion now rather than, you know, it being done an hour ago and then you bring up the topic. And so I just think that's important. So thank you for doing that, John.
Great, thank you, Mark. As an update, I think all the board members are able to go. Are you guys willing to speak? Okay, so Armando and I and Mindy are scheduled to attend Brown Act training with, and Kylan too, are scheduled to attend Brown Act training provided by LA County Council. Our discussions as we were approaching the issue of Brown Act training, and I think all the members of the public should understand that there's a lot of interpretation involved with the Brown Act. It's not exactly cut and dried. So Mark's comment about taking public comment at the beginning of a meeting is allowable, and other public agencies do it that way. We traditionally have not. We traditionally have not had a lot of public comments, so it was not an issue for the flow of our meetings. So there is a lot of interpretation, even the Brown Act trainers, and when we ask our insurer and our legal counsel, they are offering opinions that are of interpretive nature also. So everybody should know it's not cut and dried Brown Act training, or the Brown Act is not cut and dried. So the board will benefit from some, the board and staff will benefit from some additional Brown Act training. Okay, item 14A, update to director's written report. Ryan, do you have anything?
Nothing updated to what's on page 81 in the board packet. The board has specific questions about items within the director's report.
I think since we passed it in the consent agenda, everybody is comfortable with it, so we'll move on. 15 is correspondence, second payment letter from CLLS, and CLA legislative updates are all on page 107 to 114. Any questions from the board? Reports of the support groups have already taken place. Reports of trustees. This is a time when the trustees comment on anything of interest since the last board meeting. Any reports of trustees? I'll start with Gwen. You have
I too am very pleased with the sense that's going on between the two properties. It really will help, and I want to thank us for that. The other thing is that we're going to be receiving the funding from the California Library that talks about literacy, and so we have, I think it's a final payment that's coming in, and so we want to thank our board for, Lindy and staff for taking care of that.
Okay, thank you. Ira?
I just want to comment on the vacancy that we have, reading our bylaws. So if the vacancy should occur on the Board of Library Trustees, the main trustee shall fill that vacancy within 60 days, either by appointing a trustee or by calling an election. So we can do it tomorrow if we want, technically, as long as it's within 60 days.
Okay.
And there's other things to it, but that's what it's important.
And just so people know, we have replaced trustees since I've been on the board, and the common procedure is to solicit nominations applications from the community, including ads, across the newspaper and social media and whatnot, and allow people time to decide whether they would like to run for that seat. They would fulfill the end of that vacated seat's term, and I believe that runs through 2020. And the common practice has been to try to have a slate of candidates available at the following board meeting. So if we are to follow that practice, we will solicit nominations before the next board meeting and try to hold an election at the next board meeting. Should we not be able to, should we not be able to do that, then we still have additional time for the following board meeting. So I'm sorry, Kylan first.
I was just gonna say that we do have, an outline of the steps, there are laws in place and like requirements for notice, so, like one of them, you have to post the vacancy places at least 15 days before the district takes the appointment. So unfortunately, you can't take my board member tomorrow, as efficient as that may be, but, you know, if you guys want a copy of that document, I will start the process, but I have to notify the registered reporter and, you know, to notify them of the resignation.
Historically, we've always done it by the next board meeting. So
Right,
at least
right.
I've been
Within 60
attending
days,
meetings,
yeah.
and been on the board for.
Yeah, there has to be the notice.
Yeah, that's what we've done.
Yes, Mark.
Mark Mearsheimer, it's more a point of information since you're on the topic. Again, I think though, you don't have it on the agenda, so you probably need to call a special meeting so that you actually, can then discuss it. And, I mean, again, your bylaws are talking about you having to do it, but you can't do any actions unless you do it at a public meeting. So to all of a sudden give direction to go fill a position that is not on the agenda, I'm just suggesting, this is just a suggestion.
He's right.
That you need to call a special meeting, good thing to do, no problem. I mean, you can do it, you know, next week, you can do it with 24-hour notice. So, I mean, it's important to do that. The other thing is, it's just to clarify the 2020 term. So if you appointed somebody in March, let's say, even though they're filling that term of 2020, they still have to run at the next available election. And so that means they have to run in 2018, and then they have to run again in 2020. So, because they're filling that term. So I just want to make sure that that's clear and that you double check that. I mean, I might be wrong, but I just think that you need to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for letting me do
Definitely
that.
double check all of this.
Can you explain why we're not having public elections?
These are public elections. They're held on election day, November, whatever it's gonna be this year.
So that rather than the board appointing someone to a position, you are going to be having an election in November?
No, I'm sorry, I think you misunderstood. The board appoints someone to fill the seat that has been vacated until
Having an election
until
is
its
very, very
expiration.
expensive.
There
It's
is,
$150,000.
so this year being an election year, if there were people that wanted to run against the expiring seats, then they can file and go through that process.
So Ira, are you done with yours? Okay, thank you. Armando, do you have a?
Yeah, a couple of comments. Page 107, this is the email from the family next door concerning the fence, Broken John Crab. So in their email to the library, what I'm reading is that they would pay for the entire cost. So thank you to them. I haven't seen if there was anything that the library had to incur to prepare that site or clean up. So it looks like they took the whole thing, right? Yeah, so gracious to them for being good neighbors for Brooke and John Crab. I don't know if they're here tonight, but, okay. Okay, the next item, that I have, that I wanted to talk about was, back in November, I contacted the, library management because I was concerned about the news stories that were, all over LA on the news about all these crimes that were happening in libraries in downtown LA, mostly in downtown LA. Wanted to find out if we had any issues like that. And I think the initial response I got was perhaps not. We've asked for more documentation, incident reports, and there is some disturbing incidents that have been happening here. As recently as 2 days after Christmas, we had a person, a male, come up to a minor child and offer to do a sex act on a minor child. So the police were called. The person was eventually not arrested, but these are problems. These are problems that are happening, and these are things, and again, going back to the person who came up and talked about, having to have a safe environment for children, be vigilant, but we also need to have our law enforcement available. We also need to have our staff trained and adequately be able to respond when these things are happening. And I believe that in that particular incident, I asked management to find out have all the library staff been notified. And I believe the response that I got was only appropriate staff were notified. And I think that's not fair. I think that all staff members should be notified when there's something as serious as a child being in danger of sex offender, that all staff should be notified, and the branch should be notified too. Because there's people out there who want her kids, and they know that libraries have kids. And so, sometimes, unfortunately, maybe parents are working, maybe they leave them with other people to, they think this is a safe place. But Ken, I guess, if you know, has all the library staff now been notified about that incident?
Not that I'm aware of. I think that was discussed with staff in a staff meeting where there may have not been staff present. So, traditionally, the response to these kind of activities is dictated by our emergency procedure manual, one of which is, one aspect of it is, I guess, I'm not sure how it's phrased, but I think it's like a disturbance in the library, like a personal, a problem with a person that has come in. And then that sets forth kind of the list of procedures of how it can be handled. So that's something the board might consider looking at and revising to include, just for future procedure that staff are always notified of certain types of incidents. But for this incident, absolutely, I mean, that's something that, just an email, I think
Yeah,
elaborate.
and I'm concerned because if this person were to come back, he would have hurt a child, the library's gonna be financially possibly on the hook. I mean, if there's, let alone all the damage to this child, but that we knew about something, and we didn't notify all the rest of the staff to be on alert. So that's one concern. I did ask for a history of all the incidents. I just got them on Friday afternoon. I haven't gone through all of them. But that's one that, I mean, it's just less than a month old, and it's very concerning, it's very disturbing, and it's something that we need to really focus on. We should be zero tolerance for having that kind of behavior in the library. We should have our children safe to the extent we can, and we should call the police. Another thing I noticed about some of the incident reports is they're listed as John Doe. If the police came, which is basically useless. I mean, how are we going to notify or know if this person has a history of committing crimes or alleged crimes in the libraries if we keep our records as John Doe? If the police came and the police presumably took an incident report, then they have the name of the person, they can share that, we ask that they share that, so at least have a better record tracking purpose. But listing the person as John Doe, I don't see any value in that.
I don't think that was intentional, it's just that maybe they're happy sometimes. I don't know if police.
I think if they don't make an arrest, they may not have a report to fill out. I know that in the last incident that they came, they actually asked us as staff members to step away and leave them with the individual.
Well, maybe we can engage with Captain at the Sheriff's Department to work with her to see what we can do to maybe have some better reporting process on our end, so that we know if it's the same people who are causing problems in this library and what we can do, so that law enforcement is reported. Because, yeah, this is another incident from January 16th, 2017, and it says, again, John Doe, so it's not helpful.
We need more security. We don't have much security. We need the security at the branch and at the bank. We need one at each, not one that gets shared.
Right now, can you talk about I guess, where are these staff?
So we have one full-time security personnel. He goes back and forth between locations, but he's primarily at the branch, just because of the staff makeup. There's fewer staff. The staff at the branch are 100% made up of female staff members, and they've requested that they have him there at closing time and during the most of the day. So, sometimes he's there 100% of the week, sometimes he's over here for a few hours, he's on call anytime he's on duty, and he's even made himself available after hours. If we needed to call him in after hours, he's here for drop of a dime. But, to Granny's comment, yes, we can't have it both places at once, and if that's something that,
I would like to look at exploring the idea of either having a security firm give us a quote, or another person who takes it, just at least during operating hours, or when children mostly here, after school or something, that there's somebody patrolling.
Could we please also look into a no trespass order after we do identify folks who behave this way?
So we do have what's called a 602 letter, or a letter of agency, that we can fill out if there's an individual that we want arrested. Typically, the sheriff's department will come to the library, but will not do anything that's not directed by our administration. If we fill out this letter, that gives the sheriff's department the authority to arrest someone for trespassing. We did meet with Captain Stuckey probably last year. She had some recommendations for things we could do on site that would help their department facilitate this kind of thing. The signs that you see out in the parking lot that say no trespassing after hours was one of the things that they suggested we do, just to prevent vandalism, things like that.
It's different degrees. One is loitering and people using our Wi-Fi after hours.
Yeah.
The other thing is people actually trying to hurt a child, and that's a different thing, so. But maybe we can renew this idea of setting up a meeting with Captain Stuckey and maybe more dialogue with her.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have.
So my report is going to be to encourage people to apply for our vacant board seat. Anybody with interest in and experience in libraries and government agencies, or if you're just a member of the community, you do have to be a resident of Altadena to qualify for the election, and given all the proper procedures will be followed, we may be looking at an election by the February board meeting. So get your applications in when prompted, when notice is given. Item 18A, agenda items for future agendas. We have the one on the resolution for adding volunteers to the workers' comp. Do we have any others? Okay. With no other business before the board, this meeting is
May I
adjourned.
make a comment about the meetings themselves?
Pardon? Yes.
Did you entertain that?
Yes.
My name's Karen Gibson, and I'm not always able to come to these meetings. I've recently begun to come. And I do appreciate those who speak into the microphone. Most of the meeting I can't hear. And I noticed that you're sitting here now instead of having access to a microphone, and yet you're called upon to comment on a number of items. I think it's very useful for a note taker to be at the table where we can hear what she has to say. But I wonder what could be done to ensure that everyone has access to a microphone and actually does speak directly into it, so that the recording, do I understand correctly that the recording of this meeting is via microphone? It's miserable to listen to these meetings, the tapes, online. It's virtually impossible to understand what's going on. So
Just put the microphone closer.
Thank you. I think it may be the case that some of us are used to public speaking more than others, and this is a process. When I joined the board, we had a tape recorder on a chair sitting in front of us, and that's how the meetings were recorded. So we've made great progress, and that's with gratitude to Christopher and our IT department, and Thailand, and our admin assistant. So thank you for the suggestion. We'll try to continue to do bigger and better things by speaking to the microphone. So at 7:26, I adjourn the meeting.